live in an era of excess. Too much information, too much stimuli, too much noise, too many comparisons. We have never been so connected, but at the same time, so disconnected from ourselves. Technology brings us closer to others, but it often distances us from inner silence. That sacred place where truth resides. That is where transformation begins. The human mind is one of the most complex and powerful creations in the universe. It builds ideas, creates worlds, interprets realities. But it can also become a prison when it is surrounded by fears, traumas, limiting beliefs, and inherited patterns. A mind that does not awaken is like a lamp covered in many layers of dust. It has light, it has power, but it is opaque, and that is where the call comes in. True awakening is not a dramatic event full of immediate lights and miracles. It is silent. It begins as an inconvenience, an uneasiness in the face of life that is led on autopilot. It is when the soul begins to whisper louder than the cries of the world. Whoever hears this whisper begins a journey from which there is no turning back, the journey of self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is not self-help. It is not memorizing catchphrases or convincing oneself that everything is fine when it is not. Self-knowledge is having the courage to look within, to face the abysses, the shadows, the unresolved pains. It is understanding that faith is not the absence of doubt, but persistence in spite of it. It is believing even when you cannot see. It is walking even when you stumble. Faith is not an escape. It is foundation. We are made of questions. Since we were little, we have asked why. And at some point in our lives, we were taught that this was uncomfortable, that it was better to accept, keep quiet, to go with the flow. But great souls never accepted superficiality as an answer. Jesus, Socrates, Jung, Teresa of Avila, Mandela, they all bothered. They all questioned. Because they knew that those who do not question become complacent. And those who become complacent fall asleep. The awakened mind is the one that dares, that questions fear, that digs into its own truths, that breaks down old structures to build something more authentic. This mind, when allied with the heart and faith, becomes invincible because true strength does not lie in dominating others, but in knowing and governing oneself. Psychology without spirituality becomes cold technique. Spirituality without self-knowledge becomes illusion. Philosophy without practice becomes empty talk. But when these three pillars come together with purpose, faith, and courage, a rare type of human being is born. Someone who not only exists, but lives with presence, with purpose, with soul. We were taught to run away from pain, to mask suffering, to pretend to be strong when we are broken inside. But pain, however uncomfortable it may be, is a teacher. It reveals where we still need healing. It shows where we have lost ourselves. And healing does not begin with denial, but with acceptance, with humility, with surrender. Surrendering is not giving up. It is trusting. Trusting that God works behind the scenes of the soul, even when everything seems silent. Trust that there is a time to plant, another to harvest, and another to simply rest the soil. Not everything needs to be resolved now. Haste is the enemy of wisdom, and wisdom is knowing how to wait without getting lost. There is no true leap without a solid foundation, and this foundation begins with the truth, with the brutal honesty of looking at yourself and saying, I am not well, but I can improve. This is the first miracle, the second is to persist, and the third is to open yourself to faith, not as magic, but as a path. A narrow path, yes, but one that leads to life in abundance. As Christ said, the awakened soul is not content with a superficial existence. It yearns for depth, for meaning, for a calling greater than the conveniences of routine. It doesn't just want to survive, it wants to flourish. And flourishing requires light, but it also requires roots. You have to dive deep before you can grow tall. You have to understand your wounds before you can hope to heal them. You have to face the shadows to discover the true light. We live surrounded by masks, social, emotional, spiritual masks. We pretend to be okay, to please, to protect ourselves, to keep up appearances. But every mask, sooner or later, weighs us down. And the longer we wear it, the more we forget who we are without it. Awakening begins when, even though we are afraid, we choose to take them off. Not all at once, but one by one, with courage and truth. Many people seek God only as a spiritual emergency room, a place to run when everything goes wrong. But God is not just a shelter in the storm. He is the sun that rises after it. He is the wind that cleanses, the hand that sustains, the voice that silences the inner chaos. And above all, it is the presence that transforms. But only those who allow themselves to be present recognize it. Those who silence the noise, those who stop running and start listening. We have been taught that feeling is weakness, that crying is a sign of defeat, that being vulnerable is dangerous. But those who feel deeply also love deeply. And love, this true, healing, transforming love, only lives where there is room for vulnerability. There is no faith without surrender. There is no healing without pain. There is no full life without truth. Psychology teaches us to map the mind. Spirituality teaches us to free the soul. Philosophy teaches us to question the world. And faith teaches us to trust in the invisible. When we unite these paths, we realize that we do not need to choose between reason and heart. They are not opposites. They are allies. True wisdom is born from the union between logic and intuition, between science and mystery, between analysis and devotion. Many are lost not because of a lack of ability, but because of too much noise. Social media, comparisons, projected fears, all of this creates a fog. And in this fog, we forget who we are. We lose our direction. And we start living based on the eyes of others, on the judgment of others, on external expectations. But no one can walk our path for us. No one can listen to our soul in our place. This is an intimate work, solitary, sacred. Faith is not a refuge for the weak. It is the fuel of the brave, of those who continue even without understanding, of those who do not surrender to emptiness, of those who see meaning even in the darkness. Because faith does not eliminate pain, but gives it new meaning. It transforms the desert into fertile soil, night into preparation for dawn, fall into a new beginning. Transforming yourself is not about becoming someone else. It is, in fact, about ceasing to be what you have never been. It is about returning to your essence. It is about removing the layers of ego, fear, and performance, and rediscovering what is most pure within you, the divine spark. Because yes, there is something of God inside every human being, and when we access this, everything changes. Decisions change, priorities change, our outlook changes. Inner healing does not happen from the outside in. It does not come with ready-made formulas or easy promises. It comes when we stop running, when we face what hurts, when we look at the broken pieces with compassion, not judgment, when we allow the Spirit to guide us along paths that logic does not always understand, but the soul recognizes. Every unhealed trauma becomes a pattern. Every unwelcome pain becomes repetition. And until we bring light to these dark places, we will continue to walk in circles, calling destiny what in truth is just escape. Self-knowledge is the key that unlocks these invisible prisons. But knowing is not enough. You have to feel, and more than that, you have to act. Purpose is not a goal. It is a direction, an internal compass that points to that which makes the soul vibrate. It does not need to be grand in the eyes of the world. It needs to be true to the eyes of the me-D heart. It can be caring for someone. It can be teaching. It can be serving. It can be creating. What matters is that it has meaning, that it nourishes, that it unites, that it awakens. And awakening is not an end point. It is a beginning, a rebirth, a daily choice. Choosing to be present, choosing to be true, choosing to grow even when it hurts, choosing to trust even when you can't see, choosing to love even after so many disappointments, choosing to continue. This is practical faith, the faith that transforms, the faith that liberates.